Both races, a Republican incumbent is running against a Democratic newcomer. Let's talk about the candidates in Georgia. Senator David Perdue, 70, versus Jon Ossoff, 33. Senator Kelly Loeffler, am I saying it?
Loeffler,
50, versus Reverend Raphael Warnock, 51. So, Zach, what do we think about these candidates and where they stand?
Well, I mean, it's a completely diverse kind of field when you're looking at Democrats versus Republicans here. You're looking at two relatively progressive candidates on the spectrum. I'm sure some people would the ads down here call him the most Reverend Warnock the most radical Democrat ever in coming to White House and trying to connect him to Fidel Castro and any number of other communist leaders.
In the debate between Warnock and Senator Loeffler, she repeated over and over again that he was a radical.
Yeah.
He was a robot.
It's interesting that she would call him a radical, considering she keeps seemingly being seen on the campaign trail with white supremacists. So it's kind of an interesting comparison. I guess you're trying to, do the whole thing where, what the Republican Party seems to really love to do right now, which is say what the other side is at, what they're doing, the other side is doing. And so with Jon Ossoff, you have a person, he calls him, he's a investigative journalist and kind of comes at issues that way. David Perdue, both David Perdue and Loeffler seemingly have lots of different scandals that are coming out when it comes to their financial dealings, especially during having to do with COVID relief and that sort of thing. And they're also trying to pass those off to the other candidate as well.
And you're going to just gloss over Warnock scandals? I guess that's the case. Okay.
The one where they really keep trying to hammer that Obama, the old Reverend Wright story. Is that the one we're going to do where they take him out of context and all that different ads?
Where he ran over his wife's foot. All of that is fake.
So you are aware of the scandals, but you just chose not to talk about them. That's two of them, but we can keep going if you like, or you can just gloss over them since there's so abundance of scandals on the Republican side. That's what Democrats do. You don't want to talk about the truth about their own candidates. Their candidates.
Well, let's talk about the truth about the Republican candidate.
Then let's do that.
We're looking at Kelly.
David Perdue, he has been a champion for HBCUs.
Kelly was appointed. That was a paid appointment for her to be in that space.
That's not a paid appointment. It's
she does not represent her constituency.
If there had been a Democrat governor and that happened, he would.
I'm not going to try to talk over you.
So it's not. That's how it happens. That's how that laws work. And if you want to talk about the laws of Georgia, you understand that Senator David Perdue already won this election, but because of Georgia laws, you have to have a higher percent, over 50%.
So that means he hasn't won.
But
based on Georgia law, he has not won, right? And David Perdue is one that has not been seen by any of his constituency. He acts as if none of us exist, and we are very clear about that. So, to have the talking points about the scandal here and scandal there, it's either put up and shut up. So we've already seen.
Then let's put up.
We've already seen what David Perdue can do. We already know Kelly is just a robot. She's a robot with someone in her ear telling her what to say.
So there's nothing in her ear telling her what to say.
That's neither here nor there.
What is here nor there? Let's talk about Senator Perdue's record on HBCUs. Let's go there. Put up or shut up. You said it. Let's talk about his record on HBCUs and compare that to Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Go.
To compare them? It's nothing to compare.
Let's talk about it.
David, HBCU, that he signed a bill that gives them some money. We all know politicians make moves so they can get a headline. It's more about doing something here and there to appease part of the voting public. That's just an appeasement. Let's talk about what he has done for everyone else.
Democrat opponents done for HBCU, since that's just appeasement. And we can go down the line.
Criminal justice reform, the first step. Let's talk about what did he sign? What did he do to bring relief to healthcare workers, What did he do in sign and relief for folks on unemployment? Tell me, what has he done? Now, you want to talk about HBCUs. Tell me, what has he done for the regular lay? The regular lay, tell me, give me a list of what he has done for them. I can tell you, I didn't hear you.
It's really funny. It's really funny that you would downplay and disregard HBCUs, which are a bedrock for our community and led to the Black middle class.
I want to
but
get
since
back,
you want to downplay HBCUs, let's talk about Jon Ossoff and the fact that he refused to support PPP and the CARES Act funding.
Now, let's talk about voter suppression. Now, you keep talking about Black people are apathetic. You know, that's almost like saying all Black people are dangerous, using that. See,
no, it's not. And I actually,
we're not apathetic.
That's not true.
We go to the polls. We register to vote. We go to the polls.
Excuse me. If you look at the data, First of all, your statement was false.
We have to worry about whether
your statement was false and it was offensive.
In the general election.
Your statement was false and it's offensive.
Whether we are able to vote in the runoff. That's the shenanigans.
And you need to apologize for it. Number one. Number two, if you look at the data, it does show that there's apathy when it comes to the Black vote. If you look at what we do historically, we do not turn out to vote. The reason why is because a lot of times
have you looked at the numbers?
Yes, I've looked at the numbers, and it shows that there's apathy when it comes to Black voters across the country.
I want to get Christopher in on this real quick. Christopher, what are your thoughts on the candidates in Georgia?
And first of all, there is voter apathy among African Americans. African Americans traditionally only come out during the presidential elections, but in off-year elections, African Americans don't show up.
But in fairness, across the board of Americans.
Yeah, in fairness, most people show up for the general election.
Across the board with all voters in the United States.
We're not talking about all voters. We're talking about African American voters, and we're African Americans, and we don't show. And we don't show. As
if they aren't voting.
That's a fact. Sure,
Black people do vote.
Black people don't vote. Black people vote in presidential elections only. I worked at an election board. Trust me, Black people don't vote, only in presidential elections.
Christopher, how do we explain, how do we explain the 3 million Georgia residents that have already?
Because it's what I wanted to read. Because I said, because it's what I've said. African Americans.
Can we yield? Can we yield? How do we explain the more than 3 million Georgia residents that have already cast their votes?
Because I've explained it already. African Americans vote in presidential elections, but in off-year elections,
yes,
this is a presidential election year. It's a presidential election year, and we're having a runoff.
Okay.
But traditionally, in non-presidential elections, African Americans don't vote.
Okay. Stacey Abrams tried to register 55,000 young voters of color. This is when I first came down to Georgia to investigate. She tried to put them on, and I met her and Reverend Warnock at the Ebenezer. They were fighting to get Brian Kemp, then in charge of the vote, Secretary of State. They had submitted 55,000 registration forms of people of color. And after 6 months, they were not added to the voter rolls. They weren't apathetic. They were blocked from voting.
Thank you.
By the way, we use that fancy term, vote suppression. You know what? Let's call it what it is. It's vote thievery. You know, when someone steals your car, you don't say, my car has been suppressed. They're stealing Black votes. That's what I've been investigating Georgia for 7 years. It's not apathy. It's Jim Crow. Come on, let's call it what it is.
Let's call this a commercial break so we can all cool down, get us a drink of water, and come right back on the Tammi Mac. Yes, I have my bottle.
Maybe they can find some facts.
Tammi Mac.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about the Georgia runoff elections with political commentators Christopher Arps and Paris Denard. Also, author and investigative journalist Greg Palast, and award-winning video and photojournalist Zach D. Roberts, and of course, Blacktivist and the founder of the Come Meet a Black Person event, Cheryl Moses. So thank you all for being here. I want to move into Donald Trump. Now, is Donald Trump hurting? And I want to toss this to you, Christopher. Yeah. Is Donald Trump hurting or helping the Republican Party in this Senate runoff in Georgia?
Well, I think he's doing a little bit of both. I think he is helping because he's come down there and he's rallying the troops. But I also think he's hurting in an aspect when he's saying that the election is fraudulent or it's illegal. I think it's a little bit of both.
Paris, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the president is helping the Republican Party in Georgia by doing what we need him to do, which is help to get out the vote. It's called GOTV. And so you saw the thousands of people that were out there tonight, waited all day, most of the day, to listen to the president. It's encouraging to the base, because that's what you have to turn out. You have to turn out those Republican voters to make sure that they win. I was door knocking in Georgia, and a lot of the people that I spoke to were apprehensive at mailing in their ballot because they had a feeling of distrust with the system. So they said they were going to go take it in and do that. So this is why you see this push tonight before the election day, where you can actually go to cast the ballot on the election day, because that's when a lot of Republicans feel is the safest and most secure way for them to physically turn it in, because that's how they feel. Just like Greg and others feel that, past elections were stolen or past elections could not be trusted. A lot of Republicans feel that way tonight and feel that way because of the presidential election. And so when you have people like Ivanka Trump, President Trump, Vice President Pence, the leadership of the Republican National Committee, congressmen and senators, all there getting out the vote, it makes a difference, and it helps because you have to turn out your vote. Same reason why on the other side that those people are out there too. Don't know if it's going to help, but we know with Republicans, Donald Trump is a positive factor in turning out elections for candidates.
So let's talk about what happened Saturday. Donald Trump urged fellow Republican Brad Raffensperger, Georgia's Secretary of State, to find enough votes to overturn his defeat in a 1-hour phone call. It was an hour long. I heard the entire call. Some election experts say that it was definitely illegal. Others have said, maybe not so much. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Well, actually, I don't think it's illegal. A lot of my friends would say, what? He's saying, you got to review the votes, and he's making his case. And but look, Raffensperger already stole votes for him. I want to
So hold that thought. As a matter of fact, let's hear a little bit of that audio from Trump.
But that's very, very important to know that, look, as I said, with Black Voters Matter and Reverend Jackson, we sued Raffensperger, this guy, in federal court for illegally removing almost 200,000 voters, mostly voters of color. He's played all kinds of games. And in fact, Zach Roberts, who's with us tonight, he's the guy who caught them, Raffensperger, trying to put in a rule called no car vote, no vote. You can't register to vote in Georgia unless you also register a car. Now, the NAACP said, what is that about? Is that to prevent voter fraud? In other words, you're not really living in Georgia because you don't have a car here? Or is it to stop people who don't have cars, poor people, young students, in other words, voters of color, and the color's blue?
So let's hold that thought. Let's hold that thought, Greg, and let's play some of the audio of Donald Trump talking to
Find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this. And it's going to be very costly in many ways. And I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it, and you can re-examine it, but re-examine it with people that want to find answers, not people that don't want to find answers.
So who do we believe here? Do we believe Donald Trump, what Donald Trump is saying, or do we believe the Secretary of State in Georgia?
Neither. Okay, I got to tell you.
Not to believe
Trump's saying that there's fraud all over the place. So where did he get that idea? Because the Secretary of State, the guy he's talking to, actually came out in September after we issued our report from the ACLU saying that he's blocking voters. He suddenly crushed the report. He said, there's 1,000 people voting twice in Florida. He's the one that started this whole fraudulent voter nonsense, and Trump picked it up. So, but then when on privately he's saying there are no fraudulent voters, there are no double voters. Of those 1,000 double voters that your Secretary of State in Georgia, your GOP Secretary of State, said he had in his hands, like Joe McCarthy, he didn't identify one. He's never arrested one because it's a felony crime. It's all completely phony. He's full of it. Trump is full of it. Let them both go to prison.
Zach, I want to ask you here. This is very interesting because look, what do we do? Who do we believe?
Well, I mean, what I've actually just uncovered this past couple days is, we're talking about the whole kind of vast conspiracy that Donald Trump is trying to spread, and it's led, the big charge has been led by this group called Stop the Steal, led by a man named Ali Alexander, who is to put it nicely, a fringe conservative activist. Who loves to hang out with people like Alex Jones, like Nick Fuentes of the Groypers, who is a Catholic fascist activist who wants to overthrow the GOP. And what I've discovered this past week is that the NRSC is actually working hand in hand with this group on doing door knocking and getting names of people who are, likely going to get involved in the election, that sort of thing. So I don't know. The idea that this is what the Republican Party, this is what the National Republican Senate Committee has become, and that the Republican Party has become this conspiracy theorist. Just filled to the brim with whether it be literal people who admit that they are fascists. This is not a term that I'm throwing on people. This is what they call themselves. People involved in this group. I don't know. It's really hard to say if we can believe what anything that comes out of anything to do with the Republican Party right now.
Christopher, do you agree with that?
No. Voter fraud, voter fraud, as I said, I used to work for the election board in St. Louis County. Voter fraud is a real thing, but it's just very hard to prove.
It's more likely to get struck by lightning.
There's a lot of smoke regarding this election. You look at the 4 states, the swing states, they all stopped counting in the middle of the night at the same time. There's just so much things that are going on. And unfortunately, because everyone wants to just move ahead and not look at what's going on, that the courts won't even look at the evidence. Look, I know there's a big hurdle to go across with this, but a lot of the 74 million Americans that voted for Trump would like to see the evidence that they have at least presented in court, and let it play out there. It's that because we say all this stuff, you guys act we have a tinfoil hats on.
Well, where's the evidence?
So much smoke going on.
There's been about 100 judges across the country that have laughed these cases.
They haven't laughed the cases. They just will not. They don't want to deal with this. That's Paris, what it is more than anything. Go ahead,
Paris. I just think for the viewers, I think it's important to keep something in mind. We just have to be honest and fair. On the one hand, you have the Democrats saying there was voter fraud, there was voter suppression, there was voter irregularities. That's why Stacey Abrams didn't win. This has been going on in Georgia. It's a problem, and it should be taken as fact and proof and accepted when it happens to Democrats. And then when Republicans make similar charges, it's just summarily cast aside as conspiracy theorists. False, can't be trusted. So what we have to do is just make sure that we vote.
You really want
That's the best way
to smush together fraud and suppression in the same sentence. And
I'm not.
It's really not working for you.
No, don't tell me what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, for the viewers, you all just spend your time talking about the issues of voter irregularities and problems with the electoral system in Georgia that impacted Democrats, you all felt in a negative way. Fast forward to this election, when Republicans make the same charges, similar allegations, and you chalk it up to conspiracy theorists and racism.
I'm sorry. The Republican Party is making claims. Republicans are making claims that hundreds.
All I'm saying to the viewers,
ballots are being mailed in from China.
I didn't interrupt either of you. All I'm saying to the viewers is that the best way to overcome all of these challenges is to vote. Vote early if you have to, vote in every election, and be an informed voter. And being an informed voter, you find people that are willing to cross over and vote their values. And I think in this election, you see a lot of Democrats and independents who are voting their values and are coming over because I think they find that some of the things that the Democrats that are proposing right now are outside of what they believe to be acceptable.
I do believe that we can all agree with that. The voting matters, but let's take a quick break and come right back.